Meanwhile, on the Comic Box. The Killing Joke is coming to theaters, a very brief review of XMen Apocalypse, and what it means to buy back issues online. Reading comics, flipping through the pages, we like the drawings, comics. Hey everyone, and welcome to The Comic Box, part of the Geek to Geek podcast network. I'm Rob, your friendly neighborhood comic geek, and as always, we have a lot to get through, so let's open the comic box and jump straight into some news. Action Comics and Detective Comics are returning to their original numbering to, I assume, confuse fans, and also to prepare for the major milestone coming up in a few years of issue 1000. So Detective is going back to issue 934, and Action Comics will continue at issue 957. Digging into the story a bit, we have some preview pages of the upcoming Detective Comics, and it looks like Spoiler and Tim Drake, now Red Robin, are working together again, or at least friends again. This is kind of cool for those of us who were Robin fans back before the New 52, because Spoiler, also known as Stephanie Brown, eventually becoming Batgirl in the pre-New 52, and Tim Drake, who was the third Robin and then eventually became Red Robin in the pre-New 52, and now in this New 52 has always been way too many details. Point being, they were, if not a team, they were certainly a couple for a time and kind of had this will they, won't they thing going on for a while in the early Robin comics. So it's pretty cool to see them working together again in Detective. Moving away from comics into TV and movie news, just because we have so much of it this week, Supergirl, now over on the CW, is reportedly getting Superman for Season 2. I can't assume that it's going to be a regular thing. He'll probably show up in one episode, maybe the last episode or something, just to try and push sales. But we're getting Superman on Supergirl, along with Snapper Carr, who was way back in the day sort of a sidekick to the Justice League, Maggie Sawyer, who in the comics was head of the Special Crimes Unit at the Metropolis Police Department, and a new series regular is going to be Lena Luthor, Lex Luthor's sister. So I believe that is totally original. I don't believe that comes from the comics. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out. Vixen, who previously we've seen in animated form as well as live action on Arrow, I believe it was Arrow and not The Flash, is going to be on Legends of Tomorrow, but with a different actress. The report says that the original actress simply isn't available because she's filming a movie, so instead they're going to claim that they're pulling a younger Vixen from earlier in time. And that means that the original actress could possibly still return at some point to play the modern-day Vixen. I would also argue that because it's the CW, they might simply want to shoot younger because they have a younger audience, and the CW, as the WB before it, is really just for pretty young people. Old people have no place on the CW. Also, Arrow, for the upcoming season, we are reportedly going to get Ollie's backstory in Russia. Every season has its own side plot that's covered in flashbacks, and this year it sounds like we're actually going to find out what his history is with the Bravta, the Russian mob. Over in comic book movie world, Batman the Killing Joke, which is going to be premiering this year at San Diego Comic-Con, is coming to theaters, but it's for one day only. So mark your calendars, kids. Monday, July 25th, they will be having 7:30 p.m. and 10 p.m. local time screenings. So you can either check your local box office, or you can look for screenings through Fathom Events. That is Fathom, Fathom, events.com. I'll throw a link in the show notes for you as well. Keep in mind, though, that The Killing Joke is rated R. I think it's the first ever R-rated DC animated film. So keep in mind that since it's R, the standard cinema restrictions will apply. So if you have children who want to go, you will probably have to go with them. Otherwise, if you're listening and you are under the age of 17, you will need to bribe an adult to bring you into the film. For those that aren't sure why it's so exciting that this is coming to theaters, the story written by Alan Moore, the same guy who did V for Vendetta, Watchmen, really classics in the genre. It tells the story that many consider the definitive origin of the Joker. It is certainly considered one of the best Joker stories of all time. And it tells the story of, spoilers, I guess. It's kind of comic book lore at this point, but spoilers anyway. It tells the story of how the Joker shoots Barbara Gordon in the spine, which leads to her becoming Oracle, and then he kidnaps Commissioner Gordon and just, in general, does a whole lot of really horrible things. And the other big thing is Mark Hamill returns as the Joker, Kevin Conroy returns as Batman, Tara Strong returns as Batgirl. So we're going to be hearing some very familiar, very fan-favorite voices, and just everybody loves Kevin Conroy. His voice is Batman to our entire generation. But Mark Hamill's Joker, I think, even stands above that. And so just hearing this, the Killing Joke version of the Joker, which he does anyway. Like, fans ask him to read pieces from the Killing Joke at comic convention panels all the time when he's holding panels. So he's been looking forward to this. The fans have been looking forward to this. And the fact that it's rated R and they're not backing off from that really adult content is really something special. Over at Marvel, also working on some animated stuff, they're doing shorts, one for Ant-Man and one for Rocket and Groot. My understanding is they're not in production yet. I have no idea if those are going to be tagged on as sort of extras, kind of like how DC releases an animated film on DVD and Blu-ray, and then part of the special features is an animated short. So that could be what this is, where it's going to be attached to some of the Marvel movies. I'm not sure, but if you're a fan of animation, you're getting singular Ant-Man and Rocket and Groot. Rocket and Groot being one thing, animated shorts from Marvel. A Lobo movie might be on the horizon. Wonder Woman screenwriter Jason, I'm going to pronounce this, Fuchs, because I don't want to bleep myself, tweeted an image of him reading a Lobo comic. So obviously fans are going nuts now trying to figure out if this means that the DC... Boy, do they have a name for it yet? The DC Cinematic Universe? I'm not sure what they're calling it, but that the DC movies might be trying to incorporate a Lobo movie at some point, which after the success of Deadpool, I would totally believe. Lobo very much isn't the equivalent of Deadpool over at DC, but he is still very much sort of a loud, rude, ultra-violent character. Suicide Squad got its rating. It is officially rated PG-13. Which I don't really think surprises anybody. They also, for all I know, might do the R-rated extended cut later on, like Batman v Superman, but it seems like it's meant to be more of a fun movie, despite having the word suicide in the title. So, hooray, you can bring your teenagers to the movie. Sticking with DC and animated stuff, it sounds like their next animated movie, which they release periodically on Blu-ray and DVD, is going to be Justice League Dark. This was its own sort of Justice League team that dealt with hell, magic, demons, and so it was made up of characters like John Constantine, Deadman, Zatanna. I never read the comic myself, but I certainly love the idea. I think for a while this was reportedly going to be a live-action film directed by Guillermo del Toro, but I don't know where that's sitting currently. I think that sort of fell apart. So you have an animated version that you can look forward to. No word on whether or not that's based on the screenplay of the live-action one, if there was a screenplay, but I'm going to go ahead and guess not. Lastly, in our comic book movie news, the Justice League film has an official title, and it is Justice League. So, good. I'm personally cool with that. I think it makes a better statement just to have... It was like Batman in 1989. There's no subtitle necessary. It's just, hey guys, Batman. And you're like, oh, holy crap. You know, it's a Batman movie. So just saying Justice League, in my opinion, is more than good enough. My last little piece of news, and I know that Void did mention this on the Video Game News Now podcast, but Injustice 2, the follow-up to the DC fighting game Injustice Gods Among Us, is on the way, and we have an announcement trailer, which shows Superman, The Flash, Batman, Aquaman, and Supergirl all sort of duking it out with one another. Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment also confirmed that the game will have Atrocitus, who is the leader of the Red Lanterns, and Gorilla Grodd as playable characters as well. And I'm sure there'll be a whole host of other characters and DLC characters and DLC outfits and stuff to look forward to as well. Moving on to this week's reviews. Green Lantern Edge of Oblivion number 6. This is the last issue of this miniseries before we roll over to Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, though this story does not tell us exactly how that is going to start. There is no hint there. This is the story where the Green Lantern Corps, with the exception of Hal Jordan and Kal Rayner, gets launched back in time into the universe before our own. And so they have to try and figure out how to escape before that universe collapses. Spoilers, they do, and we know this because we know that Guy Gardner and John Stewart will be in the upcoming Green Lantern book, but not before a lot of other Lanterns sacrifice their lives. And we actually get one cool plot point where a city, the last remaining city of the last universe, is added to the Green Lantern planet. There is a planet that's a Green Lantern named Mogo. And so this city gets added to Mogo, and then they dive through a tear in the universe. So I suppose it's possible that they'll lose other lanterns on the way. We don't know exactly what's going to happen after this. But the few things I wanted to add here is I wonder how much the Green Lantern editorial team pay attention to which lanterns get killed. Because I've been reading Green Lantern books for a long time, and I could have sworn that I have seen lanterns that supposedly had died in different issues showing up alive and well. So that might just be notes between editors and artists getting lost, or writers and artists, or somebody just not being sort of the keeper of the Book of Oa and keeping a list of which lanterns are currently alive, which ones are dead, which ones have lost limbs, and that sort of thing. Because ever since Jeff Johns took over Green Lantern, he sort of got rid of the idea where lanterns don't die, and they're an international peacekeeping force. They get into wars. Of course, lanterns are going to die and get replaced. But it seems like they're having a little trouble keeping everybody straight. So we lost a couple of lanterns in this issue, so I am curious to see if we're going to see them show up again later on. Next up, we have Wonder Woman Rebirth #1. This is written by Greg Rucka, one of my favorite comic book writers, which is why I was willing to pick this one up. I did like the very first words sort of spell out the whole theme of this issue, which is something keeps happening in my memory. The story keeps changing. Basically, this issue is introducing yet another retcon to the Wonder Woman story and covers how nothing ever seems to be true in her life. In every time she thinks she knows her origins, she's wrong and some new thing or piece gets introduced. So first, the classic Wonder Woman origin story is that she was a child made of clay imbued with life by the Greek gods. And then when we hit the New 52 in the Brian Azzarello run, we find out that no, that's a lie, that she was told so that she wouldn't find out that she was actually the child of her mother, Hippolyta, and the Greek god Zeus. And now with Rebirth, we have yet another twist that she may not have been the only child of Hippolyta by Zeus, that she may have a brother out there. So beyond that, this issue sort of retreads that general origin, throws that kind of everything you know might be a lie spin on everything. And we get a new use for the lasso of truth, where normally she can wrap it around somebody and force them to tell the truth, or when she asks a question, whatever they say is the truth. In this case, though, she wraps it around her own arm, and the lasso itself appears to be talking and speaking just universal truths or things, because it tells her things that she didn't know. So apparently the lasso knows everything. That's sort of a weird twist on the lasso of truth, and I worry about that sort of becoming kind of this Deus Ex Machina, whatever I need, oh no, what's the password to get into this locked storage facility? I'll just ask my rope. I don't know, maybe I'm just being hypocritical. I have a smartphone and the internet, so I can answer just about any question as well, I guess. And of course, this also includes a costume change where Wonder Woman now looks much closer to the way she looks in the movie. No shock there, that's pretty standard for comic books when movies come out. As for whether I will continue reading this one, I'm not sure. I'll probably go and at least pick up issue #1 of the new series, but Wonder Woman's just never clicked with me. But hey, if you want me to read it, if you want to know how Wonder Woman is going, shoot me a message. You can email me at Gmail at thecomicboxpodcast@gmail.com. Or hit me up on Twitter at Noby. So that is at KNOWBY. On to the poll list for next week. Green Lantern's #1 already coming out, which is kind of surprising because it was just last week that Green Lantern's Rebirth was there. So I kind of assumed that we'd be seeing Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern Corps first, at least the Rebirth issue, but I guess not. I am looking forward to it. It features the 2 rookie Lanterns, Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz, so they're characters I know next to nothing about, but they're wearing Green Lantern rings, so apparently that means that I like them. Civil War II #2 comes out next week. I said before that I didn't know if I was going to keep reading it. I'm still not sure. I want to keep you guys updated of what's happening in the comics, but I kind of feel like I can get that from the news websites and not have to let myself fall into another massive crossover event. So Marvel has been doing a little better lately where you can read the main story, the main series, and not feel like you're totally lost when you don't read the 8 million other tie-in comics. But we'll see. I'm on the board as to whether or not I'm going to get Civil War II #2, but wanted to let you know that's coming out next week. One I'm definitely picking up is Scarlet number 10, because the series is continually moving ahead, and I've been waiting for it forever. And like I said last time, I am now going to do a quick reread of all of the previous 9 issues so that I'm totally caught up for next week's number 10. Over at IDW, Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez are doing a 4-issue miniseries of Tales from the Dark Side, which used to be a horror anthology show, kind of like The Twilight Zone or Tales from the Crypt. Joe Hill tried to bring it back to television a while ago, but it didn't get picked up. So instead, he is taking the stories that he wrote and turning it into this 4-issue miniseries. I am looking forward to it just because it'll feel maybe like a little more lock and key just because it's the same writer and artist. But since it's only 4 issues, you know they're going to come out with a trade soon, so I'm much more likely to pick that up once it comes out in trade format. Finally, we're going to dip into what I think I'm going to call the archives, which is where I go back and I read old comics, something that's not coming out this week. When I was at the comic shop this week, I picked up a trade of Chase by J.H. Williams III. It's written by Dan Curtis Johnson, but I guess it's plotted by Williams, and then he handled the art. This is the guy that did that gorgeous art on Batwoman. So this is a 10-issue series starring an agent of the DEO, which is the Department of Extranormal Operations, named Cameron Chase. It takes place in the DC universe. Her job is basically to investigate superhero sort of phenomenon. She hates superheroes. You find out why during the course of the story. She would always kind of pop up in books from time to time in the 90s and 2000s, and I never really knew much about her, so I saw the trade and it was, I've always wondered about that character, and as per my own advice a couple weeks ago, I figured I'm going to give something new a shot. Also, I was looking online, and apparently Cameron Chase has shown up on Supergirl, played by Emma Caulfield, who was Anya from Buffy. So, like I said before, I haven't watched a lot of Supergirl, but I love the fact that this almost obscure character has already appeared on television, so I might actually have to seek that episode out and check that out. So I know we're already running long on time, but I want to give a very, very brief review of XMen Apocalypse. I wanted to make sure I waited until everybody had a chance to see it, and I'm the kind of guy who likes to jump on podcasts. So when a podcast comes out that's already filled with spoilers right away after something is aired, that bugs me a little bit because I might need some time to go see it. So I waited, so here's my review of XMen Apocalypse. Overall, I'll say that I liked it. I've never really quite clicked with these X-Men movies as well as I have with the Marvel movies, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I think it's because the X-Men movies really treat each of their films as sort of an episode of an ongoing story, which is okay, but I just never feel like I'm getting a full story in its own right. It's like, here's the villain, we beat up the villain, we move on to next week's episode. So it almost has kind of a monster of the week sort of feel. Obviously, this film also, to me, is mostly about Magneto, which is fine. It's just they have so many sort of balls in the air that they're trying to juggle with the story here, where you're not really sure which character we're supposed to care about because there's too many having little things happening to them, which again makes it have that sort of episodic feel. But to me, it's like if this was meant to be mostly a film about Magneto and his allegiances and him struggling with his own personal identity and where he fits in the world, which clearly the fact that he's screaming at the heavens while crying, like clearly that's a big theme in this movie. So to me, I would have then said, all right, well then just give me a Magneto movie. Like, we're okay with that. We like Michael Fassbender as Magneto. He's awesome. He's been great in the last 2 X-Men movies. So it didn't need to be called Magneto, I guess. It could still be X-Men Apocalypse, but really, spend more time with Magneto then, which I felt they did, but then you don't need to focus so hard on everybody else. If in the end you want to say that the X-Men movies are about the rift between these 2 people, Xavier and Magneto, then those are the 2 people we should be focusing on and maybe spending not as much time with some of the younger characters. But that said, I did enjoy the movie. I look forward to seeing it for a second time because I'm sure that'll probably help shape my overall opinion of the movie. And it's very much the same where First Class, I had to see it more than once, I think, in order to appreciate it more fully. I think on my first viewing, I said, that was kind of a neat movie. Cool. Like, I liked how it didn't feel like it was that big. It felt like it was almost a smaller contained story and felt different from other comic book films. But then it was like, but I don't know that it's necessarily my favorite, which I feel like every comic book movie is almost trying to be, is they want to be the new big thing. And maybe that's the studios more than the filmmakers, but this didn't feel like that to me. So as convoluted as that was, that is my review of XMen Apocalypse. And now finally, and I guess also very briefly, because I suppose my topic of the week should have been that review, but I had another topic set up already, and then I saw XMen Apocalypse. So my topic of the week is buying comic books online. A little bit of history on your friendly neighborhood comic geek. I used to carry a handwritten list written on an index card, folded and shoved into my wallet, that had all of the comics I was missing from my runs. And so whenever I would travel to a new city, or we'd go on vacation, or I'd go visit a friend somewhere, I would always look up the local comic shop, which I still do. I still love visiting comic shops around the world. But I would pull out that little index card and I would dive into those long boxes and just start flipping through back issues, hoping that I can find the ones that I'm looking for. And with the internet, and with sites in particular like mycomicshop.com, that doesn't need to be a thing anymore. And the question, I think, is whether or not that's a good thing. Because here's what I did. A couple of years ago, my wife and I were doing pretty well. I was making okay money, so I decided I would treat myself and start filling in the holes in my runs. A friend of mine from work had suggested mycomicshop.com to me, so I went and found out that many of the issues I was looking for, which came out in the 90s, were really cheap, $1 or $2 per issue. So over time, and we're talking over a year here, maybe once every couple months I'd spend $20 or something and pick up 10 issues. I filled in all of the books that I was missing. So now I go to conventions or I go to comic shops and I see all those long boxes and I kind of have this feeling of I don't need to look at those anymore. So I almost feel lost, like that joy of digging through long boxes, searching for just that one issue you just can't find anywhere. I don't really have anymore. And now that I have the total runs, especially when it comes to miniseries, I'm learning, that there are trades out there with the exact same thing. And I kind of wonder if I should have just gotten rid of my single issues and bought a trade, because then it fits on my shelf. It's easier to take with me if I want to bring it on a plane or something. So the point I'm trying to make is, even though we have the technology today where you can go online and you can complete all of your runs, think before you do it. I'm not saying that I regret my decision, because I know I was able to do it probably a little cheaper than I would have if I was buying individual issues at a convention or hunting comic shops, but there was really that joy to doing that. And I think especially as people go into digital comics now, or people just picking up trades, that you don't really get that joy anymore. I think that's part of the comic reading experience that no longer exists. So that is it for this week's episode. Before I go, though, one favor that I'd like to ask. Shoot me an email, hit me up on Twitter. You can find me at thecomicboxpodcast@gmail.com, or on Twitter @Knowby, that is @KNOWBY, and let me know what you think of the podcast. I keep running a bit long when I'm recording, so I'm trying to figure out where I can cut back, which topics you guys like being covered more, or which areas you guys like being covered more. So if, for example, you don't care about comic book movie news or comic book TV news, or you want me to move my topic of the week into a separate podcast so that I have one that's just news and reviews, and then another one where I go off on a rant for a while. The whole point is to give you guys something fun to listen to. Obviously, it's fun for me to record, but I want to make sure you guys are enjoying what I'm putting out there. So shoot me an email, hit me up on Twitter, and let me know what you guys think. So until next week, this is Rob, your friendly neighborhood comic geek, closing the comic box. The comic box. The end. Also, did anybody see that tweet from Robert Downey Jr. where he photoshops himself in bed with Aunt May? Yeah, that's not disturbing at all. Not one bit.